through the maple trees, lining the suburban street as Arnold Graham pulled into his driveway. The setting sun cast long shadows across his two-story colonial home, and through the kitchen window, he could see Shelley moving about, her silhouette a familiar comfort he'd known for the past decade. Yet something about her movements seemed different lately, more guarded, perhaps. Arnold killed the engine of his Mercedes and sat there for a moment, his briefcase heavy with case files in the passenger seat. The weight of recent observations pressed against his mind. The way Shelley's phone would quickly disappear into her pocket when he entered a room, how she'd begun taking calls in the bathroom with the shower running, the passwords that hadn't existed on her devices just months ago. The front door opened before he could reach for his keys. Shelley stood there, perfectly put together in her cream blouse and pencil skirt, her dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're home early," she said, stepping back to let him in. The house smelled of garlic and herbs. She'd been cooking, something she'd taken to doing more elaborately lately, as if to compensate for something. "Light day at the office," Arnold replied, loosening his tie. He noticed how she angled her body away when he leaned in to kiss her cheek. "Smells good in here. Just trying out a new recipe." Shelley hurried back to the kitchen, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors. "We need to leave for your mother's in an hour. Don't forget it's Sunday dinner." Arnold watched her retreat, noting the slight tension in her shoulders. 10 years of marriage had taught him to read every subtle shift in her body language. Something was off, had been off for weeks now, but he couldn't quite put his finger on what. In their bedroom, Arnold changed out of his suit, catching glimpses of Shelley through the bathroom door as she applied fresh makeup. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and he saw her snatch it up with unusual speed, her fingers flying over the screen before she deleted whatever she'd just read. "Everything okay?" he asked casually. "Oh, just Brittany," Shelley responded, not meeting his eyes in the mirror. "She's having a rough time with the divorce proceedings. You know how it is." Arnold did know. As a family law attorney, he'd seen countless marriages dissolve, had become expert at spotting the signs of trouble. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was now analyzing his own marriage with the same clinical eye he used for his clients. The drive to his mother's house was quiet, filled only with the soft classical music from the car's speakers and Shelley's occasional comments about work at her marketing firm. Arnold noticed how she kept her phone face down on her lap, something she'd never done before. Nancy Hoover's colonial-style home sat on a corner lot, its manicured lawn a testament to his mother's dedication to maintaining appearances. As they pulled into the circular driveway, Arnold spotted his brother Simon's BMW already parked there. Something tightened in his chest. Simon had been unusually distant lately, canceling their regular lunch meetings at the firm with vague excuses. "Arnold, Shelley," Nancy called from the front door, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the humidity. She hugged them both, but Arnold noticed her embrace of Shelley was briefer than usual. Come in, come in. Simon's already here." The formal dining room was set with Nancy's best china, as it was every Sunday. Simon stood by the fireplace, drink in hand, looking more polished than usual in a crisp blue button-down and darker than normal gray slacks. He raised his glass in greeting, but didn't move from his spot. "Arnold," he nodded. "Shelley." Something about the way he said his sister-in-law's name made Arnold's lawyer instincts prickle. There was a weight to it, a carefulness that seemed out of place for family dinner. As they took their seats around the table, Nancy brought out her famous pot roast, the same recipe she'd been making for Sunday dinners since Arnold was a child. The familiar aroma filled the room, but tonight it seemed to compete with an underlying tension. "So, Shelley," Nancy said, passing the potatoes, "I missed you at the end of service last Sunday. Sister Marlene was asking about you." Shelley's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Oh, yes. I had to leave early. Brittany needed me. We had lunch plans." Nancy's eyes narrowed slightly. "Brittany? That's interesting. I ran into her at Morton's Grocery that afternoon. She mentioned she'd been in Seattle all weekend for work." The silence that followed was heavy. Arnold watched as Shelley's cheeks flushed slightly, her hand tightening around her water glass. "I must be mixing up my weekends," Shelley recovered, letting out a small laugh. "You know how busy things get at the firm. The days just blur together sometimes." Arnold felt his mother's eyes on him, saw the slight shake of her head. Nancy Hoover had always had an uncanny ability to sense when something wasn't right, a trait that had served her well through 40 years of marriage and raising 2 boys. Speaking of the firm, Simon interjected quickly, "Arnold, did you review the Patterson case files I sent over?" "Didn't get them," Arnold replied, studying his brother's face. "When did you send them?" "Last Thursday evening." Simon shifted in his chair. "I left them on your desk after hours. Funny, I was at the office late Thursday. Never saw them." The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. Shelley's phone buzzed in her purse by her feet, and Arnold noticed how her whole body tensed at the sound. "Excuse me," she murmured, standing up. "I should take this. It might be Brittany." As Shelley hurried from the room, Nancy leaned toward Arnold, her voice low. "Something's not right with that girl lately, Arnold. A mother knows these things." "Mom," Simon warned, but Nancy waved him off. "Don't mom me, Simon O'Neill. I've known Shelley since she was dating Arnold in law school. She's different lately. Distracted. Nervous." Nancy's eyes locked onto Arnold's. "And you've noticed it too, haven't you?" Before Arnold could respond, Shelley returned, her cheeks slightly flushed. "Sorry about that. Where were we?" The rest of dinner passed in a blur of forced conversation and careful glances. Arnold found himself watching every interaction with new eyes. The way Simon barely looked at Shelley, how Shelley's laugh seemed just a bit too bright when Nancy mentioned their upcoming anniversary. Later that night, as they prepared for bed, Arnold noticed Shelley checking her phone one last time before plugging it in, screen carefully angled away from him. "Everything okay with Brittany?" he asked, keeping his voice neutral. "What?" "Oh yes. Just sister stuff, you know." Shelley slipped under the covers, turning away from him. "I'm actually thinking of going to see her next weekend. She's having a hard time with everything." Arnold stared at the ceiling in the darkness, listening to Shelley's breathing as she pretended to sleep. The seed of doubt his mother had planted began to take root, fertilized by a decade of experience with similar cases at the firm. The next morning, Arnold arrived at Graham and O'Neill Family Law earlier than usual. The office was quiet, the morning sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of their corner office in downtown. He made his way to Simon's office, noting the recently upgraded security cameras in the hallways, his brother's pet project from last month. Simon's desk was immaculate as always, but something caught Arnold's eye, a small silver earring by the edge of the leather visitor's chair. He picked it up, the design familiar. Shelley had a pair just like it. The sound of the office door opening made him turn. Simon stood there, coffee in hand, surprise flickering across his face. "You're in early," Simon said, moving to his desk. "Thought I'd look for those Patterson files you mentioned." Arnold held up the earring. "Found this instead." Simon's face remained carefully neutral. "Must be from a client." "Must be," Arnold agreed, pocketing the earring. "Funny though. Looks just like the pair I got Shelley for our anniversary last year." The brothers stared at each other for a long moment, years of shared history and unspoken words hanging between them. Finally, Simon looked away. "The Patterson files are probably lost in the system somewhere," he said, turning to his computer. "I'll have my assistant look for them." Arnold nodded, heading back to his office. He'd handled enough cases to recognize avoidance when he saw it. As he sat at his desk, his phone rang, an unknown number. "Arnold Graham speaking." "Mr. Graham? This is Caitlin Callahan. You handled my divorce case last year?" "Of course, Mrs. Callahan. How can I help you?" There was a pause on the line. "This is delicate. I do some PI work now, and I've been working a case at the Riverside Hotel. I thought you should know. I've seen your wife's car there. 3 Thursday nights in a row now. Same time, same duration." Arnold's grip tightened on the phone. "Thursday nights, Shelley's book club meetings." "You're sure?" "I have photos if you want them. Room 304. I remembered how you helped me when I found out about my ex. Thought I owed you the same courtesy." "Thank you, Mrs. Callahan." Arnold's voice was steady, even as his world tilted on its axis. "I'll handle it from here." The rest of the week passed in a blur of careful observation and mounting evidence. Arnold noticed things he'd been subconsciously registering for weeks. How Shelley always seemed to have her phone on silent now, the way she changed her email password, the increasing frequency of her sister emergencies. Friday morning, Shelley was packing an overnight bag when Arnold entered their bedroom. "Weekend trip?" he asked, watching her select clothes with careful precision. "Brittany's having a rough time," Shelley said, not meeting his eyes. "You know how it is with her divorce. Sisters need to stick together right now." Arnold nodded, noting how she packed her new lingerie set, the one she'd bought last month, but he'd never seen her wear. "Of course. Give her my best." After Shelley left, Arnold picked up her jacket from the chair where she draped it. In the pocket, his fingers found what he'd been both dreading and expecting, a keycard for room 304 at the Riverside Hotel. His hands shook slightly as he photographed the card with his phone. Then, with the same methodical precision he used when building a case, he called Brittany's number. "Arnold." His sister-in-law sounded surprised. "Is everything okay?" "Just checking in," he said calmly. "Shelley mentioned she was staying with you this weekend. Wanted to make sure you're doing all right with everything." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, Brittany spoke, her voice tight. "Arnold, I'm in Seattle, at a business conference. Have been all week." "I see." Arnold closed his eyes, the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. "Thanks, Brittany. Take care." As he hung up, Arnold stared at the keycard in his hand. 10 years of marriage, a lifetime of trusting his brother, all unraveling in his fingers like a cheap sweater. The lawyer in him knew what needed to be done: evidence, documentation, careful planning. The husband in him wanted to storm the hotel right now. The lawyer won out. He had a weekend to prepare, to gather evidence, to make sure that when he confronted them, there would be no wiggle room, no way to twist the narrative. He'd seen too many clients lose everything by acting on emotion rather than logic. Arnold sat at his desk, staring at the keycard. As a partner at Graham and O'Neill Family Law, he'd built his career on handling cases just like this. How many times had he sat across from clients, explaining the warning signs they'd missed? Now those same signs were flashing right before his eyes. The irony wasn't lost on him. For years, he and Simon had worked together, building their reputation as the city's premier family law firm, specializing in infidelity cases. They'd seen every possible variation of betrayal, every excuse, every pattern. Now he was living what felt like one of their case files. The keycard for room 304 sat heavily in his hand, physical proof of what his instincts had been telling him for weeks. As both a husband and a lawyer who'd handled countless infidelity cases, Arnold could no longer deny the truth before him. His wife and his own brother had betrayed him, and now he had the evidence to prove it. Nancy's words from dinner echoed in his mind. A mother knows these things. She tried to warn him, in her way. Now it was time to find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. The autumn sun was setting outside his window, casting long shadows across the room. In the growing darkness, Arnold began to plan. He'd build his case methodically, gather his evidence carefully, and when the time came, he'd make sure both Shelley and Simon understood exactly what they'd thrown away. For now, though, he had work to do. The keycard sat on his desk like a ticking bomb, room 304 waiting like a court date on his calendar. Thursday nights at the Riverside Hotel. The pieces were all there. Now, it was just a matter of putting them together in a way that would leave no room for reasonable doubt. Arnold pulled out a legal pad and began to write, each word a brick in the wall he was building around his heart. When he was done, there would be no escape, no way to explain away what they'd done. They'd chosen their path. Now he would make sure they walked it alone. Morning light filtered through the blinds of Arnold's home office, casting striped shadows across the evidence laid out on his mahogany desk. The hotel keycard to room 304 seemed to mock him from its position next to his laptop, where screenshots of text messages and call logs created a digital trail of betrayal. His coffee had gone cold, untouched since he'd poured it 2 hours ago. The wall clock ticked past 9, each sound echoing in the quiet house. Arnold picked up his phone, scrolling through his contacts until he found Carlton Garrett's number. The phone rang twice. Carlton Garrett speaking. "Carlton, it's Arnold Graham." A pause, then. "Arnold, I was wondering when you'd call. News travels fast in our circles. How much do you know?" Enough. Carlton's voice softened. Caitlin filled me in on the Riverside situation. Room 304, right? Arnold's jaw tightened. I need your expertise. Remember the Jensen case last year? The one where we caught the CEO with his secretary? Hard to forget. Saved your client a fortune in the settlement. I need something similar. Arnold's fingers drummed on his desk, but more sophisticated. Multiple angles, remote activation, absolutely foolproof. Carlton inhaled sharply. This is personal, isn't it? Very. Jesus, Arnold. Carlton paused. You sure you want to see what's happening in that room? Some things you can't unsee. Arnold glanced at the wedding photo on his desk. Him and Shelley on their wedding day. Simon standing beside them as best man. The happiness in that moment felt like a cruel joke now. I need to know everything, Arnold said. And I need proof that nobody can dispute. Meet me at my workshop in an hour. I'll clear my morning schedule. Carlton's workshop occupied the back of an old textile warehouse in the industrial district. The space was a tech enthusiast's dream. Walls lined with surveillance equipment, monitors displaying various camera feeds, and workbenches covered in tools and electronics. Welcome to Surveillance Central, Carlton said, leading Arnold to his main workbench. He pulled out several small devices. These are the latest in covert recording technology, military-grade stuff, but completely legal for civilian use. Arnold picked up one of the cameras. It was smaller than his thumb. How many do we need? For complete coverage? Carlton sketched a quick diagram of a hotel room. I'd say 4. 1 above the door for entrance coverage, 2 for different room angles, and 1 focused on the bed area. He glanced at Arnold. Though you might not want that last one. I want everything, Arnold said firmly. Every angle, every moment. No room for denial. Carlton nodded slowly. These are motion-activated, wireless transmission to a secure server. Everything gets time-stamped, GPS-tagged, and encrypted. Nobody can claim the footage is doctored. Show me how to set them up. For the next hour, Carlton walked Arnold through the technical details. How to position each camera, how to test the angles, how to activate them remotely from his phone. One more thing, Carlton said, pulling out a small device. This is a motion sensor for the hallway. Gives you a 30-second warning before anyone enters the room. Might help avoid awkward moments. Arnold slipped the sensor into his pocket. How much do I owe you? Consider it payback for the Jensen case. Carlton hesitated. Arnold, I've seen a lot of surveillance operations in my time. The ones involving family. They're always the hardest. This isn't just about family anymore, Arnold replied. It's about truth. From Carlton's workshop, Arnold drove straight to the offices of Rivers and Harmon Law. Merle Harmon's corner office offered a panoramic view of the city skyline, but today the blinds were drawn against the late morning sun. Merle looked up as Arnold entered, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. I've been expecting you. Word travels that fast? In our profession? Like wildfire. She gestured to the chair across from her desk, especially when it involves partners at Graham and O'Neill. Though I admit, I'm surprised you're here and not at Jacobson's office. Arnold sat down, his posture rigid. Jacobson's too close to Simon. I need someone who'll handle this exactly by the book. And you think that's me? Merle removed her glasses, fixing Arnold with a penetrating stare. Because we've been opponents so often? Because you're the best at infidelity cases in the state. And because you've never lost one where there was clear evidence. A ghost of a smile crossed Merle's face. Flattery will get you everywhere. But before we proceed, are you sure about this? Once I file these papers, there's no going back. I have the evidence. Photos, surveillance footage of the hotel, time frames. Arnold's voice remained steady. By tonight, I'll have video proof. Merle's eyebrows rose. Carlton's handiwork, I assume? Everything legal, everything documented. Of course. Merle pulled out a legal pad. In this state, infidelity evidence can influence the settlement significantly. But you know that better than most. She paused, studying him. What you might not know is how it feels when it's your own case. When it's your own brother. Arnold's face hardened. I need those papers ready for tonight. Tonight? Merle's pen paused mid-word. Arnold, moving too quickly can. I have a key card to room 304 at the Riverside. They'll be there tonight. I need those papers ready. Merle was silent for a long moment, then nodded. I'll have them ready by 6. But remember something. You're not just a lawyer on this one. You're the client too. And clients sometimes let emotion override judgment. Not this time, Arnold said. This time, everything happens exactly by the book. The afternoon stretched endlessly as Arnold prepared. In his office at Graham and O'Neill, he reviewed the firm's security footage, documenting every late-night meeting between Simon and Shelley. The upgraded cameras his brother had insisted on installing provided crystal-clear evidence of their betrayal. His phone buzzed, a text from Shelley. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Red heart. Another lie to add to the pile. At 7:30, Arnold parked his car in the Riverside Hotel's garage, deliberately choosing a spot near the service entrance, away from the main parking area. The hotel's lobby bustled with evening activity, business travelers checking in, tourists planning dinner, a wedding party taking photos by the fountain. None of them noticed the man in the sharp suit heading for the elevators, his briefcase containing more than just legal papers. Room 304 waited at the end of a long hallway, the carpet muffling his footsteps. Arnold checked his watch, 7:45. If the pattern held true, they'd arrive separately. Shelley first, then Simon, usually 15 minutes apart. The keycard slid smoothly into the lock, the green light welcoming him into the scene of his wife's betrayal. The room was standard luxury hotel fare, king-size bed with crisp white linens, generic watercolor paintings, a desk by the window overlooking the city. Arnold moved methodically, placing Carlton's cameras with surgical precision. One above the door, hidden by the decorative molding. 2 more disguised among the room's artwork, covering different angles. The final camera, focused on the bed, disappeared into the television mounting bracket. Each camera connected to his phone with a soft ping, their feeds appearing on his screen in perfect clarity. The motion sensor went in the hallway, just past the ice machine. 7:55. Arnold positioned himself by the window, partially concealed by the heavy curtains. His phone vibrated, movement in the hallway. The sound of heels clicking on tile, then carpet. A keycard in the lock. Shelley entered, wearing the black dress she'd bought last month. The price tag had raised his eyebrows at the time. Now he knew why she'd wanted to look special. She set her purse on the desk, then froze as she spotted him. Arnold. Her voice cracked. What are you? The door opened again. Simon stepped in, already loosening his tie. Sorry I'm late. I had to finish that Johnson brief. The words died in his throat as he saw his brother. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioning. Arnold reached for his phone, activating all cameras with a single tap. Small red lights blinked to life around the room, recording everything. 10 years, Arnold said quietly, his voice steady despite the thunder of his heartbeat. 10 years of marriage. 35 years of brotherhood. And this is what it comes to. Shelley moved first, stumbling toward her purse. Arnold, please, this isn't what it looks like. Arnold's laugh was hollow. Like the room service bills charged to the firm's corporate card? Like the late-night meetings at the office? He turned to Simon. Like those security cameras you insisted on upgrading last month? Simon took a step forward, hands raised. Arnold, let's talk about this rationally. Rationally? Arnold's voice could have frozen hell. Like brothers? Or like lawyers? Like family, Simon pleaded. We can figure this out. Family. Arnold pulled the divorce papers from his briefcase, placing them deliberately on the desk. You know what's interesting about family law, Simon? How patterns repeat. The lies, the excuses, the betrayals, they're all the same. I just never thought I'd be living one of our case files. Shelley had begun to cry, mascara tracking down her cheeks. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. We never meant to get caught. Arnold cut her off. That's what they all say, isn't it, Simon? How many times have we heard that in depositions? It was a mistake. We never meant to hurt anyone. At least be original. Simon's face had gone pale as he spotted the cameras. You can't use those recordings. It's a violation of privacy laws. In a public hotel? With a key card giving me legal access? Arnold's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. You really think I didn't do this by the book? Check the firm's security logs. Check the hotel records. Everything's documented. Everything's legal. Just like you taught me, brother. The word brother seemed to physically strike Simon. He sank into the desk chair, his usual confidence evaporating. Shelley made another desperate attempt. Arnold, please. We can talk about this. We can get counseling. Work through. There's nothing to work through. Arnold checked his phone, confirming all cameras were recording clearly. The papers are on the desk. Merle Harmon will contact you both tomorrow. Merle Harmon? Simon's head snapped up. You're bringing her into this? She's handling my divorce. I think you know her reputation with infidelity cases. Arnold moved toward the door. And Simon? The firm's board meets next week. I suggest you review your partnership agreement, specifically the morality clause. The color drained from Simon's face. You wouldn't. I would. I am. Arnold paused at the door. The firm's security cameras caught everything. Every late-night meeting, every time you used company resources to conduct your affair. Funny how evidence piles up once you start looking for it. He stepped into the hallway, but Shelley's voice stopped him. Arnold, wait. Please. I'll do anything. Just don't show those videos to anyone. Think about our families. Arnold turned back one final time. You should have thought about our families before using Brittany's name to cover your affair. Before betraying not just me, but every person who trusted you both. The door closed behind him with a decisive click. In the elevator, his phone exploded with messages. Shelley begging for mercy. Simon threatening legal action. He muted them both without reading further. The night air was cool as he left the hotel. His phone buzzed again. Nancy. Of course his mother would sense something was wrong. Arnold. Nancy's voice was thick with worry. Is everything all right? I've been trying to reach Simon, but he's not answering. Mom. Arnold's voice caught, the lawyer's facade cracking slightly. You need to sit down. There's something you need to know. The call lasted 20 minutes. By the end, Nancy was crying, her worst suspicions confirmed. Oh, my boy, my boys. I have proof, Mom. Videos. Documents. Everything. Does Brittany know? They used her name. Not yet. I'll tell her tomorrow. Arnold reached his car, suddenly exhausted. Mom? I'm sorry. About Simon, about all of it. Don't you dare apologize. Nancy's voice strengthened with maternal fury. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. Do you hear me? They're the ones who need to be sorry. After hanging up, Arnold sat in his car, watching the hotel's entrance. Eventually, he saw them leave separately, Shelley first, clutching her purse like a shield, then Simon 10 minutes later, his tie still undone. Both looked shell-shocked, destroyed by their own actions. His phone buzzed one final time. A text from Carlton. Cameras caught everything. Files uploading to secure server now. You okay? Arnold didn't respond. He started his car, pointing it toward his mother's house. Nancy would be waiting up, ready to help pick up the pieces of their shattered family. The night stretched ahead, full of calls to make, explanations to give, truths to reveal. But for now, Arnold drove through the quiet streets, his evidence gathered, his confrontation complete. The lawyer in him knew he'd handled everything perfectly. The brother, the husband. Those parts of him would have to wait their turn to process what had happened. His phone buzzed again. Brittany. His heart sank as he realized she must have heard something already. Arnold. Brittany's voice was shaking. Mom just called me. Tell me it's not true. Tell me they didn't use me as their cover. Brittany, I'm so sorry. All those times. Her voice broke. I suspected something was wrong, but I was afraid to say anything. I didn't want to destroy the family. And they were using my name the whole time? I have proof of everything, Arnold said gently. You don't have to feel guilty anymore. The line went quiet except for Brittany's muffled sobs. Finally, she whispered, What happens now? Right now, I'm heading to Mom's. She needs us. As he pulled into Nancy's driveway, he saw her silhouette in the window, waiting. Behind her, he could see other family members already gathering, drawn together by the gravity of what had happened. The night wasn't over yet. There were still truths to face, pain to process, family bonds being tested and broken and reformed in the wake of betrayal. But for now, Arnold had done what needed to be done. He'd faced the truth and brought it into the light. Whatever came next would have to wait for tomorrow. The grandfather clock in the Hoover family home struck 9 as Arnold finished setting up the audiovisual equipment. Through the study window, he watched another car pull into the circular driveway, his Aunt Margaret's silver Lexus, followed by Uncle Robert's Range Rover. The family was gathering, unknowing witnesses to the implosion of everything they thought they knew. In the kitchen, Nancy methodically arranged coffee cups on her prized serving tray, her movements deliberately slow to hide the tremor in her hands. The Wedgwood china set, a wedding gift from Arnold's grandmother, felt especially fragile today. The Petersons just pulled up. James called from his position by the front window. He'd been standing sentinel for the past hour, watching their extended family arrive. And Richard's with them. Arnold nodded. Richard Peterson had been the Hoover family's attorney for 3 generations. His presence today wasn't coincidental. James must have called him. Did you tell them? Nancy's voice carried from the kitchen. About what we're going to see? No, Arnold replied, checking the video timestamps one final time. Some things need to be witnessed firsthand. The doorbell chimed. Joshua Dow's commanding presence filled the doorframe, his pastoral collar a stark white against his dark suit. Sarah, his wife, clutched her Bible like armor. Behind them, Simon's fiancée Valerie Morrow stood in Louboutin heels that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Arnold. Joshua's voice carried the weight of 20 years of sermons. Nancy was rather cryptic on the phone. Said it was about both our families? Before Arnold could respond, Brittany pushed past them into the house. Her designer blazer and pencil skirt were immaculate, but her eyes were red-rimmed behind her glasses. She'd been up all night after Arnold's preview of what was to come. Dad, she nodded to Joshua, then turned to Arnold. The Carlsons are right behind me. Margaret wanted to bring Elizabeth too. Elizabeth? Sarah's eyebrows rose. But she's only 16. She needs to see this, Brittany cut in. Everyone needs to see who they really are. The living room filled quickly. James had rearranged the furniture the night before, creating an impromptu theater setting. The large TV screen dominated one wall, its black surface reflecting the growing crowd like a dark mirror. Richard Peterson materialized at Arnold's elbow. Your father called. Said you might need legal counsel for what's about to happen. Not counsel, Richard. Just a witness. More families arrived, the Carlsons with their teenage daughter Elizabeth, Aunt Margaret and Uncle Robert, cousins from both sides of the family. The room hummed with confused murmurs and speculation. Arnold stood before them, remote in hand. The faces that had witnessed every major moment of his life now waited, unknowing, for everything to change. Before I start, he said, his courtroom voice cutting through the chatter, I want you to understand something. What you're about to see isn't edited, isn't manipulated. It's raw truth, captured by legal means, properly documented. Joshua shifted in his seat. Arnold, you're frightening Sarah. Good. Brittany's voice was sharp. She should be frightened. We all should be. The first video began playing. Hotel security footage, crisp and clear. The timestamp showed 3 weeks ago, the same night Shelley had claimed to be helping Brittany with divorce paperwork. Elizabeth Carlson gasped first. Is that Aunt Shelley? With Uncle Simon? Elizabeth, leave the room, her mother Margaret ordered. No. Arnold's voice was firm. She stays. Everyone stays. Everyone watches. Everyone knows exactly what kind of people they've been protecting. The footage continued. Simon's office at the firm, after hours. The security cameras he'd insisted on upgrading had captured everything in perfect detail. Joshua's Bible hit the floor with a thud. Sarah began to pray quietly, her whispered words a counterpoint to the damning evidence on screen. Turn it off, Valerie suddenly commanded. She'd gone pale, her perfectly manicured hands gripping her handbag. I've seen enough. There's more, Arnold replied. I said I've seen enough. Valerie stood, yanking her engagement ring off with enough force to leave a mark. The platinum band flew across the room, bouncing off the wallpaper before disappearing under a cabinet. The front door slammed behind her hard enough to rattle the windows. Richard Peterson cleared his throat. The recordings are legal? Every second, Arnold confirmed. Public spaces, company property, proper documentation. Simon approved the security system himself. Elizabeth's voice cut through the shock. But why? Why would they do this? It was the innocent question of a teenager who still believed in fairy tales. The adults in the room shifted uncomfortably, their own marriages and secrets suddenly under the harsh light of scrutiny. Because they could, Brittany answered. Because they thought they were clever enough not to get caught. Because they used my name, my divorce, my pain as their cover story. Sarah finally looked up from her prayers. Joshua, say something. She's your daughter. But Joshua Dow, who had counseled countless families through crises, who had preached about morality and family values for 2 decades, couldn't find his voice. His daughter's betrayal played out on screen in high definition, leaving no room for pastoral platitudes. The footage continued. Hotel visits spanning months. Late-night meetings at the firm. Client billing records showing hours charged during their encounters. Each piece of evidence meticulously documented, forming an unbreakable chain of truth. The board meets tomorrow, Arnold informed them. Simon's partnership will be terminated. The firm's name will change. You'll destroy his career, Sarah protested weakly. He destroyed it himself. James spoke up for the first time. Every time he used company resources for his affair. Every time he billed clients for hours spent with my daughter-in-law. Elizabeth, who had been silent since her initial outburst, suddenly asked, "What about their souls?" The room went quiet. Leave it to a teenager to cut to the heart of the matter. Joshua finally stirred, his pastoral training kicking in automatically. We must pray for. Pray? Brittany's laugh was bitter. They used my divorce as their excuse, Dad. While you were counseling me about my failed marriage, your other daughter was destroying her own. Where were your prayers then? Nancy's coffee cups rattled on their tray as she set it down too hard. That's enough. What's done is done. What matters now is how we move forward. Move forward? Margaret's voice rose. Nancy, they've made us all complicit. Every Sunday dinner, every family gathering. We were all part of their lie. No, Arnold cut in. We were victims of their lie. But not anymore. The final piece of evidence played. Security footage from the firm showing Simon upgrading the camera system himself, unknowingly creating the tools of his own downfall. Richard Peterson pulled out his notebook. The firm's bylaws are clear about moral conduct and resource misuse. Tomorrow's board meeting is a formality. What about Shelley's parents? Elizabeth asked. Shouldn't they be here? They'll see it soon enough, Joshua responded, his voice hollow. Sunday service should be interesting. The gathering began to break up, family members leaving in 2s and 3s, carrying the weight of what they'd witnessed. Elizabeth hugged Arnold before leaving, whispering, I'm sorry they weren't who we thought they were. Richard stayed behind, reviewing documents with James in the study. Nancy mechanically began cleaning up coffee cups, her movements automatic after decades of hosting family gatherings. Brittany helped her, gathering scattered napkins and empty cream pitchers. You okay, Mom? Nancy's hand stilled on a coffee cup. I keep thinking about last Christmas. All of us together, taking photos, making plans. Was it all a lie? Not all of it, Arnold answered from the doorway. Just them. The next morning, Arnold arrived at the firm an hour before the board meeting. The evidence sat in neat folders on the conference table, hotel footage, security camera clips, billing records, all perfectly organized. Simon arrived last, his usual polished appearance showing cracks. His tie was slightly crooked, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like every guilty client they'd ever represented. The board's decision is already made, Simon said quietly as the members filed in. Isn't it? You made their decision weeks ago, Arnold replied. Every time you used this firm to conduct your affair. The meeting was brief, clinical. Each board member reviewed the evidence in silence, their faces growing grimmer with each page. Simon didn't even attempt to defend himself. By afternoon, the firm's name had changed to Graham Legal Solutions. Simon's office was being packed up by impassive movers, his nameplate already removed from the door. Meanwhile, Shelley discovered her access to the firm's social media revoked. Her carefully curated online presence began to crumble as family members shared their truth. Elizabeth Carlson's post hit particularly hard. Sometimes the people we look up to the most let us down the worst. Hashtag family betrayer. Months passed. Simon moved to Arizona, his legal career in shambles. Shelley took a job in Seattle, her exile self-imposed but necessary. The holes they left in the family fabric slowly began to heal, filled by stronger bonds between those who remained. Brittany proved invaluable as office manager, her efficiency helping steady the firm during its transition. Sunday dinners at the Hoover house became smaller but more meaningful. Even Elizabeth started attending regularly, her teenage perspective sometimes cutting through adult pretenses with refreshing clarity. 6 months after the family meeting, Arnold sat in his expanded office, now managing partner of the city's most successful family law practice. The divorce had been finalized weeks ago, Shelley's attempts to claim mental distress crumbling in the face of evidence showing premeditation. A knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. Caitlin Callahan entered, her PI badge catching the afternoon light. She'd been handling security for the firm since the reorganization, her sharp eyes and attention to detail proving invaluable. "The Petersons called," she said. "Elizabeth's doing a school paper on professional ethics. Wants to interview you." Arnold smiled slightly. The teenager's questions during the family meeting had stayed with him. "Set it up." "Also," Caitlin hesitated, "I was thinking about dinner. That new place on Fifth?" Something had been developing between them, slowly and cautiously. Professional respect turning to friendship, possibly more. Neither rushed it. They'd both seen too many relationships shatter to take anything for granted. Arnold glanced at his desk, at the new family photo showing him with his parents, Brittany, Elizabeth, and others who'd stood by him. In his wastepaper basket, the shredded remains of his wedding photo served as a reminder of how quickly everything could change. "Dinner sounds good," he replied, rising and turning off the office lights. Sometimes, he reflected, the best revenge wasn't just exposing the truth, it was thriving afterward. And surrounded by those who'd chosen truth over comfort, loyalty over lies, he was finally starting to thrive again. Elizabeth's latest Instagram post said it best. Family isn't always who you're born to or married to. Sometimes it's who stands with you when truth matters more than comfort. Hashtag lessons learned. Hashtag stronger together. 5 years later. The autumn leaves scattered across the courthouse steps as Arnold Graham exited the building, his latest case successfully concluded. At 43, success sat comfortably on his shoulders. Graham Legal Solutions had become the most respected family law firm in 3 states, with a reputation for handling complex infidelity cases with particular expertise. His phone buzzed with a text from Caitlin. "Elizabeth's graduation ceremony starts at 6. Don't be late. She wants both her godparents there." Arnold smiled, still amazed at how life had rearranged itself. Elizabeth Carlson, the teenager who'd witnessed the family's implosion 5 years ago, had grown into a formidable young woman. Now graduating from law school, she'd already accepted a junior position at Graham Legal Solutions, determined to follow in her godfather's footsteps. The drive to his mother's house took him past the old Graham and O'Neill building. The sign had long since changed, but sometimes Arnold still caught himself remembering those final days. His brother Simon's name being stripped from the letterhead, the scandal that had rocked their professional community. Nancy's driveway was already full when he arrived. Sunday dinners had evolved but never stopped. Through the window, he could see Brittany directing caterers, her efficiency as his office manager extending to family gatherings. Her own divorce was 5 years behind her now, and her recent engagement to James Peterson, Richard's son, had brought joy back to both families. Inside, the house hummed with activity. Elizabeth sat at the kitchen counter, law books spread around her as she prepared for her bar exam. Her thesis on the ethics of family law, personal experience as professional foundation, had already garnered attention in legal circles. "Uncle Arnold." She jumped up to hug him. The uncle was honorary now, closer than blood. "Did you see? The Arizona Bar Association finally disbarred Simon last week." Arnold nodded. He'd seen the news. Simon's attempt to rebuild his career in Arizona had collapsed under the weight of new scandals, inappropriate relationships with clients, misused funds, a pattern of behavior that suggested his affair with Shelley hadn't been an isolated incident. His third wife left him too, Elizabeth added, her journalism minor showing in her attention to detail. Apparently, she found him with his paralegal. Some people never change, Caitlin commented, entering from the living room. Her PI badge now read Director of Security. Graham Legal Solutions had expanded into offering comprehensive investigation services under her leadership. The gold band on her left hand caught the light. She and Arnold had married 2 years ago, a small ceremony in the Hoover family garden. Nancy emerged from her study, her silver hair elegant as ever. No shop talk before dinner, she announced. Elizabeth needs to focus on her graduation speech. Speaking of speeches, Brittany called from the dining room. Dad sends his regrets. Church council meeting ran long. Joshua Dow had needed years to rebuild his pastoral reputation after his daughter's scandal. The affair had cost him some congregants, but his public acknowledgement of family pain and healing had ultimately strengthened his ministry. He now specialized in counseling families torn apart by infidelity. "Did you hear about Shelley?" Nancy asked quietly as she and Arnold set the table. Old habits died hard. She still used the Wedgwood china for Sunday dinners. Arnold had heard. Through the legal grapevine and Elizabeth's social media monitoring, they'd kept tabs on his ex-wife. After Seattle, she'd moved to Portland, then San Francisco, each move marked by diminishing returns. Her attempt to rebuild her marketing career had faltered as the story followed her. Background checks kept revealing the scandal, and in the age of social media, nothing stayed buried. She tried reaching out to Brittany last month, Nancy continued. Wanted to explain her side after all these years. What did Brittany say? Nothing. Blocked her number. Nancy straightened a fork with precision. Some bridges stay burned. The doorbell rang. James Peterson arriving with his father Richard. The older lawyer had officially retired but still consulted on complex cases. His son had followed him into law, but chose to specialize in corporate litigation rather than family law. His courtship of Brittany had been careful, respectful of her past hurts. Anyone see the new profile on Graham Legal? James asked as they sat down to dinner. National Law Review did quite a spread. Arnold had seen it. The article praised the firm's innovative approach to infidelity cases, highlighting their integration of digital forensics and social media evidence. What had started as personal tragedy had evolved into professional expertise. They interviewed me for it, Elizabeth added proudly. Wanted the perspective of someone who'd witnessed the firm's transformation firsthand. Speaking of transformations, Caitlin interjected. Margaret mentioned running into Valerie Morrow in Chicago last week. Valerie, Simon's ex-fiancée who'd thrown her engagement ring across the room that fateful day, had channeled her anger into activism. She now ran a nonprofit helping women rebuild their lives after betrayal, her own experience lending authenticity to her work. Everything's different now, Elizabeth mused, looking around the table. But better, right? More real. Arnold squeezed Caitlin's hand under the table. 5 years had changed everything and nothing. The pain had scarred over, but the lessons remained. Trust, once broken, never returned quite the same way. But new trust, built on truth and shared healing, could grow stronger than before. Later that evening, as guests departed and Nancy packed up leftovers in her methodical way, Arnold stood in his father's old study. James Sr. had passed 2 years ago, but his presence lingered in the leather chairs and law books. A framed article on the wall caught his eye, the first major piece about Graham Legal Solutions transformation. Below it sat a family photo from last Christmas. The faces had changed over the years, some missing, others added, but the core remained stronger for having weathered the storm. His phone buzzed with an email alert. A new client referral, another high-profile infidelity case. The kind that had become their specialty. Still at it, Caitlin appeared in the doorway. Elizabeth wants your input on her graduation speech. She's thinking of addressing professional ethics and personal experience. Tell her to speak her truth, Arnold replied. It's what she does best. They walked out together, passing the spot where Valerie's engagement ring had hidden under the cabinet for months before being found during renovation. Nancy had melted it down and used the platinum to make pendants for the women in the family, symbols of transformation. In the car, Arnold's phone showed another news alert. Simon's latest troubles making headlines in Arizona. His brother's path of self-destruction continued, each new scandal eerily similar to the last. Some patterns, it seemed, were too deeply ingrained to break. Shelley's latest social media profile listed her as marketing consultant in San Francisco, but her client list was thin. Her carefully curated posts showed a life stripped of family connections, each holiday marked by generic updates rather than shared memories. Her third attempt at relationship counseling had ended like the others. Trust, once fundamentally broken, proved impossible for her to rebuild. The drive home took them past the Riverside Hotel, still standing but under new management. Room 304 had been renovated during a remodel, erasing the physical space of betrayal while its impact echoed through lives and decades. Elizabeth had interviewed the hotel's former manager for her thesis. The interesting thing, she told Arnold, isn't just how secrets come out, but how people rebuild afterward. Some never do. Others build something stronger from the wreckage. Their house, the one Arnold and Caitlin had bought together 2 years ago, sat on a quiet street away from his old neighborhood. No ghosts here, no memories of betrayal, just new traditions being built, one day at a time. Brittany and James set a date, Caitlin mentioned as they settled in. Next spring, in the garden where we got married. Arnold nodded. The symmetry felt right, new joy blooming where old pain had taken root. His laptop showed a calendar reminder, Elizabeth's graduation next month, then her bar exam, then her official start at the firm. The next generation taking up the mantle, turning personal history into professional wisdom. Do you ever regret it? Caitlin asked quietly. How public everything became. Arnold considered the question. The exposure had been brutal, but necessary. The truth, fully revealed, had prevented any rewriting of history, any softening of consequences. No, he finally answered. Secrets protect the wrong people. Truth protects the right ones. On his desk sat a letter he hadn't shared yet, an invitation to keynote the National Family Law Conference. The topic, When Professional Expertise Meets Personal Experience, Transforming Private Pain into Public Justice. 5 years had transformed betrayal into expertise, pain into purpose. Simon and Shelley's choices had rippled through dozens of lives, but the ripples had shaped something stronger in their wake. Elizabeth's latest Instagram post captured it perfectly. 5 years ago, I watched my family implode. Today, I'm graduating law school, joining the firm that rose from those ashes, and helping others find their way through darkness. Sometimes the worst chapter of your story becomes the foundation for someone else's healing. #justice served, #family law, #new beginning. The post had thousands of likes, including one from Valerie Morrow's nonprofit and another from Joshua Dow's church counseling program. Even in darkness, light found its way through. Arnold closed his laptop and joined Caitlin on their back porch. The autumn air carried hints of wood smoke and changing seasons. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new challenges, new opportunities to turn experience into expertise. But tonight was for reflection, for acknowledging how far they'd come from that Sunday morning 5 years ago when truth shattered pretense. The pieces had reformed into something different but stronger, a mosaic of chosen family, hard-won wisdom, and purposeful justice. Sometimes, Arnold reflected, the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth or even thriving afterward. It's using your scars to help others heal, turning private pain into public purpose, and building something so strong that the original wound becomes just another chapter in a much longer, richer story. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.